General Tharzek stood tall on the edge of the battlefield, his heavy boots pressing into Earth's dirt. He was smiling. Not a kind smile. This one was sharp, cruel. His armor gleamed under the cloudy sky, and behind him stood rows upon rows of alien soldiers. Their weapons were polished. Their ships hovered above, dark shadows against the clouds. He raised his clawed hand and let out a loud laugh. "These are the humans," he said, shaking his head. "Where are they hiding? Do they fear us already?" The alien army laughed with him. Their war machines hummed and beeped, ready for destruction. To them, this was not a war. It was cleanup. Tharzek had destroyed 3 other planets before this one. Earth was just another name on his growing list of victories. He believed humans were weak. He believed they were soft. But something was strange. The battlefield was too quiet. There were no human soldiers in sight. No defenses. No walls. Just broken roads, half-destroyed buildings, and silence. Tharzek ordered his scouts forward. 4 fast skimmers rushed ahead, scanning for life. They moved through the ruins of a city, buildings torn apart by old wars. Some looked burned. Others looked melted. One of the alien captains called in. "There is damage here, General," the voice said. "But it wasn't caused by us." "What do you mean?" Tharzek asked, narrowing his eyes. "The metal here, it looks like plasma damage, alien weapons, but not ours. And there are no bodies." The signal ended with static. Then came a loud, sharp scream. Tharzek froze. His army went quiet. One of the communication officers tried to reconnect with the scouts, but no answer came. He stepped forward and looked across the land. Nothing moved. No wind. No birds. Even the clouds above seemed to pause. Something was wrong. He felt it deep in his chest, but he shook the feeling off. "They probably crashed," he muttered. "Weak minds." He raised his voice. "Send in the next wave. I want humans found. Bring me their leader." More skimmers rolled out, followed by heavily armored soldiers. They moved into the ruins. A few minutes passed. One group reported strange symbols scratched into the walls of buildings. Another reported strange traps, simple, almost primitive, but effective. One soldier lost a leg. Another vanished into the ground when a trapdoor opened under him. Tharzek began to feel the first touch of unease. He climbed onto a hill and stared at the city below. His sharp eyes scanned the shadows. Something caught his attention. There was a figure standing on the rooftop of a destroyed building. Small, still, human. Tharzek squinted. The figure wore dark armor, like shadows wrapped around a skeleton. It held no weapon, just stood there. Then it raised a hand slowly and pointed right at him. Tharzek growled. "Sniper?" one of his guards asked. "No," the general said. "That is a message." Suddenly, a voice came through the open comm channel. Calm, clear, and human. "You should have stayed away." The voice disappeared. Then fire lit the city. Explosions ripped through the buildings. Alien vehicles flipped. Dust covered the air. Screams echoed through the streets as chaos took hold. Soldiers ran in every direction. Tharzek's ships fired blindly, trying to find a target. But no human soldiers were visible. Tharzek stared into the smoke. His army was under attack, yet no enemy could be seen. His mind raced. "This is not possible," he muttered. "Where are they hiding?" Another call came in, this time from his left flank. "General, we are under heavy fire. They're moving through the smoke like ghosts." They hit, then vanish. The general's fists clenched. A report arrived from one of his commanders. 2 squads gone. No signs of their bodies. No energy traces. "We are being hunted." Tharzek shouted in frustration. Hunted. By humans. They are prey, not predators. But deep inside, he felt something cold. Another explosion rocked the earth. A tower near him collapsed, crashing down on several alien tanks. Tharzek ducked and rolled away. His guards pulled him back behind a shield wall. His second-in-command, a tall insectoid named Verlik, spoke nervously. "General, we must regroup. These humans, they are not fighting like other species. This is not war. This is something else." Tharzek did not answer right away. He stared at the battlefield below. Smoke rose in black columns. Fire spread across the ruins. He saw his soldiers being picked off one by one, pulled into the dark by unseen hands. And then he saw it again. The same human figure, standing in the smoke. It looked straight at him. Its helmet reflected firelight. Then it vanished. His heart beat faster. "Pull the army back," he finally said. Verlik blinked. "What?" "General, pull them back and regroup." Tharzek snapped. "We face an enemy we do not understand. These are not the humans I studied. These are different." He looked to the sky, where his ships hovered nervously. "They want a war," Tharzek said quietly. "We'll give them one. But no more laughing." Behind him, the alien army began to fall back, unsure and shaken. Far away, hidden in shadows, the human commanders watched. One of them smiled. Phase 1 was complete. Now the real battle would begin. The alien army, once so confident, now moved uneasily through the ruined city. Tharzek paced nervously in his command tent. The quiet was unbearable. His soldiers had set up defensive positions, but the humans were still nowhere to be seen. Not a single shot had been fired from their side since the initial explosions. What are they waiting for? Tharzek muttered under his breath, the weight of the silence pressing down on him. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the chaos. The reports were strange. Too many strange things happening in too little time. "We should have hunted them down while we had the chance," Verlik, his second-in-command, said. "We are not accustomed to this kind of retreat. They're toying with us." "They are doing more than toying," Tharzek snapped. "They are testing us. And they are winning." The general stormed out of the tent, his steps heavy as he climbed to the top of the hill overlooking the battlefield. The remnants of his forces were digging in, but the humans, where were they? Not a single soldier had been spotted since the first explosion. They were gone. "General," came the voice of his comm officer, "we've detected something. It's coming from above." Tharzek's eyes narrowed. "Above? What is it?" "Unidentified ships," the officer reported. "They're not human, but they look like." "Not human," Tharzek said sharply. "What do you mean?" The officer hesitated. "They look like human-made drones, smaller than our ships, but they're moving fast. We can't get a lock on them." Tharzek's stomach twisted. "Drones," he repeated. "Humans don't use drones. Not like this." He turned to Verlik. "We have to act. Bring down all remaining fighters and set up defenses. If they are watching us from the sky, we'll find them before they strike." Verlik nodded and ran off to relay the orders. The alien air units scrambled to move into position. The sky above was dark with the shadows of their ships, but the tension only grew. There was something in the air, something thick with the anticipation of a storm that hadn't yet arrived. As Tharzek watched, his mind raced. The human forces hadn't attacked in full force. They were playing with him. He had underestimated them, and it was becoming clear that this was not going to be a quick victory. "We need to lure them out," Tharzek muttered, pacing back and forth. "If we can strike first, if we show them we're not afraid." Suddenly, a new message crackled over the comms. "General Tharzek," came the cold, calm voice of a human. "I would suggest you take cover." The comms went silent. Tharzek felt a chill run through his spine. What is that supposed to mean? Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled violently beneath their feet. Tharzek's vision blurred for a second as the shockwave of an explosion rippled through the city. The alien soldiers screamed in panic. Tharzek barely kept his footing as the earth cracked beneath him. He could hear the distant rumble of something massive, something fast, moving through the rubble. "Get the scanners on it. Now," Tharzek roared. But before his orders could be fully processed, the earth split open. A hidden trap. Massive human-made machines, like giant mechanical beasts, rose from the ground. They were covered in dirt and rock, but were clearly built for one purpose: destruction. They moved with an unnatural grace, despite their size, and as they emerged, they let out a bone-shaking roar of mechanical power. Tharzek's mouth went dry. These weren't just tanks or war machines. They were something else entirely. These creatures were walking death. The machines began to move forward, and as they did, another explosion rang out, sending debris flying in every direction. But Tharzek was no longer focused on the explosions. He was focused on the sheer power of the humans' response. Verlik appeared beside him. "General, we must retreat. Now." But Tharzek didn't move. He stood still, staring at the machines. They weren't running from the fight. They were running towards it. Then, a voice echoed over the battlefield, clear and sharp, like a knife cutting through the air. "This is just the beginning. You've made a grave mistake, Tharzek." Tharzek's blood ran cold as he recognized the voice. It was the same human from before, the one that had spoken over the comms. "Who are you?" Tharzek shouted into the air. The response was calm and chilling. "We are the Deathworlders, and you've just woken the storm." Before Tharzek could even react, the battle began. The earth trembled again as the human machines advanced. The air was filled with the roar of engines and the hiss of energy blasts. The aliens fired wildly, but their shots seemed to miss their targets, only striking the ruins around them. For the first time, Tharzek felt the cold hand of fear wrap around his heart. These humans weren't afraid. They were laughing. And they had only just begun. The battlefield was chaos. Explosions cracked the air, dust and fire filled the sky, and the once dominant alien war machines now seemed helpless against the human onslaught. Tharzek stood atop a pile of shattered metal, surveying the disaster unfolding before him. His forces were scattered, confused, and rapidly losing ground. He could barely make out the sound of his soldiers' panicked cries over the deafening noise of battle. "Get your act together," he screamed into his comlink. "We can still win this. We are the superior force." But even as he spoke, his words sounded hollow. Every plan, every calculation, had crumbled beneath the relentless assault of the humans. Tharzek's eyes darted across the battlefield. He could see the human machines tearing through his ranks with terrifying precision. Some were massive, towering over the alien forces, while others were sleek and agile, darting between buildings, firing at anything that moved. It wasn't just the machines that terrified him. It was the humans themselves. They didn't fight like any species he encountered. There was no hesitation, no fear. They fought with a ferocity that was unmatched, like wild animals unleashed upon their prey. "They're everywhere," Verlik muttered beside him, his voice tinged with disbelief. "No matter where we go, we're being hunted." Tharzek gritted his teeth. "I need answers. Now." A report came through his comms, and Tharzek's blood froze. "General, we've captured a human soldier. He's been interrogated. He said something strange." "Strange? What did he say?" Tharzek barked. "He said, 'You're already losing.'" And then he laughed. Tharzek slammed his fist into the metal wall of the command station, his anger rising. Laughed. The audacity of these humans. "Bring him to me," he growled. The human prisoner was dragged before Tharzek. His armor was battered, his face smeared with dirt and blood. But his eyes, those cold, unblinking eyes, stared straight ahead. He didn't look like someone who had been broken by torture. If anything, he seemed calm, almost amused. Tharzek stepped forward, towering over the human. "Who are you? What is your name?" The human didn't respond immediately. Instead, He tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. Then, in a voice that carried no fear, he spoke. "My name doesn't matter. You won't remember it." Tharzek's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean by that?" The human soldier smirked. "It's not about me. It's about what we are. We've been waiting for you." Tharzek leaned in closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You think this is a game, human. You think you can defeat me with your tricks." The soldier laughed. It was a quiet laugh, but it was filled with a kind of dark amusement that sent a chill down Tharzek's spine. "We've fought wars on this planet long before you arrived," the soldier said, his voice steady. "Every living thing here is a threat. We've learned to survive on a world that wants us dead. You'll learn that soon enough." Tharzek recoiled. This human was different. There was something unsettling about his words, something that felt familiar. "What are you talking about?" Tharzek demanded. "You cannot win. You're outnumbered, outgunned. You have no chance against the might of the Galactic Empire." The human soldier's smirk faded into something more solemn. "You don't understand. We are the storm. We're the ones who endure. You thought you could conquer a weak, defenseless world, but all you've done is wake up a beast you can't control." Tharzek's frustration boiled over. He reached out, grabbing the human by the throat. "Enough of your riddles. What are you hiding?" The soldier's eyes glowed with something dark, something primal. "We've been waiting for this moment. The moment when you'd make the mistake of underestimating us. And now, it's too late." Before Tharzek could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the camp. The ground beneath him shook violently, and the soldier was ripped from his grip, thrown across the room by the force of the blast. Tharzek barely managed to maintain his footing as another explosion tore through the command center. His comms flared to life, a frantic voice calling out, "General, they're coming. The humans, they've breached our defenses. We can't hold them." Tharzek's mind raced. His forces were in disarray. The humans had found a weakness, and they were exploiting it with ruthless efficiency. "Verlik," Tharzek shouted, "regroup the remaining forces. We cannot let them break through. We must." Another explosion. The walls around him shook. The base was crumbling. Tharzek looked around, his eyes wild with panic. "Where are my reinforcements?" But his question went unanswered. The human forces were too close now. He could see them emerging from the smoke, moving through the ruins like ghosts, silent, deadly. And then Tharzek heard it again, the calm voice over the comms. "This is just the beginning. You've already lost." Tharzek turned, scanning the battlefield. His heart sank. He could see the human forces now swarming in from every direction. Their weapons weren't just deadly, they were precise, efficient. And that human soldier, the one who had laughed in his face, was leading them. Tharzek's eyes locked onto him. The soldier's gaze was filled with fire, but there was something else in his eyes. A promise that this was only the beginning. The ground trembled beneath Tharzek's feet, the dust rising like an ominous cloud as explosions continued to rock his command base. His mind raced as he stood amidst the chaos, the full scale of his miscalculation sinking in. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting with the land, with every resource, every scrap of wreckage, and every inch of terrain at their disposal. "Regroup, regroup," Tharzek shouted, though his voice barely carried over the roar of battle. His forces were retreating, scattered, and demoralized. The enemy had breached their outer defenses, and the humans weren't just tearing apart the alien soldiers, they were tearing apart the very fabric of the battlefield. Verlik, looking panicked but composed, hurried over to Tharzek. "General, we can't hold them much longer. They're machines, they're faster, and they're everywhere. The humans are coordinating their attacks like they know our every move." Tharzek clenched his fists, frustration boiling within him. "I've underestimated them. We all have. The alien general paced in tight circles, his mind grinding through possibilities. The human forces had emerged from the smoke like a storm, moving with uncanny precision. Every time Tharzek thought he had a plan, the humans adapted. They were no longer fighting in the open, no longer relying on brute force. No, the humans were picking off his forces with deadly accuracy, hiding in plain sight, using the ruins to their advantage. Move, regroup in the central compound. Tharzek barked. We'll hold them there. We have the high ground. We must not. A loud crash interrupted him. The sky above seemed to split apart as another explosion rocked the earth. This time, it wasn't from a bomb or a weapon. It came from the sky. Tharzek looked up, his heart racing. What in the galaxy? High above, several human ships descended rapidly, smaller and sleeker than the aliens' own vessels, but brimming with power. They didn't land. They hovered just above the ground, their weapons charging with terrifying intensity. Without warning, beams of energy shot out, cutting through alien defenses, incinerating everything in their path. In the blink of an eye, an entire squadron of Tharzek's soldiers was wiped out. The beams sliced through armor and flesh with ease, the alien soldiers disintegrating before they could even react. The air filled with a high-pitched whine as the human ships continued their deadly dance above, picking off targets with surgical precision. Tharzek's thoughts were in turmoil. How can they have this much power? The human fleet wasn't supposed to have these advanced weapons. Their technology had always been seen as primitive compared to the Empire's vast arsenal. But now, it was clear, the humans had something that no one had anticipated. General, Verlick cried, tugging at Tharzek's arm. We must fall back. We can't win this. Not now. Tharzek refused to acknowledge the panic in his second-in-command's voice. We will not retreat. This is just another tactic. We will crush them. But deep down, even Tharzek couldn't shake the feeling that his victory had slipped from his grasp. The humans weren't playing by the rules. They didn't fight to win. They fought to survive. And that made them far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Hours passed in a blur of explosions, fire, and chaos. Tharzek's forces were reduced to mere fragments of their former strength. The human machines moved with terrifying efficiency, tearing through alien defenses and picking off soldiers with cold precision. And still, Tharzek's mind churned with confusion. The humans, they were everywhere. Every turn, every corner. There they were. And they were laughing. Always laughing, even as they fought. He could see it now. The human soldier, the one who had been captured earlier, had been right. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were unleashing something primal. They didn't need to defeat him by force. They just needed to wear him down until he was broken. We need answers, Tharzek muttered under his breath. What is their secret? Then, something unexpected happened. Through the smoke and fire, Tharzek saw a lone human figure standing in the distance, silhouetted against the blazing wreckage. The same soldier who had taunted him earlier, the one who had laughed. For a moment, their eyes met. Tharzek's heart skipped a beat. This soldier wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He was waiting, like a predator watching its prey. And in that moment, Tharzek knew. This was the human who had orchestrated all of this. This soldier was the one who had turned the tide. Send everything we have after him. Tharzek ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. He's the key to this madness. The alien soldiers surged forward, desperate to capture or eliminate the human who stood so boldly in their path. But as they charged, they were met with a sudden barrage of fire. The human figure didn't move, didn't even flinch. He stood tall, his weapons glowing brightly with an eerie energy, cutting through the alien ranks with ease. One by one, the aliens fell. Each shot from the human seemed to bring down entire squads, each blast from his weapon sending alien soldiers scattering. His eyes never left Tharzek's. Finally, as the last of the alien forces were wiped out, The human soldier raised his weapon and fired a final blast straight at Tharzek. It was not a killing shot. Instead, it was a warning, a blast that sent Tharzek tumbling back into the rubble. The human soldier slowly walked toward him, every step measured and deliberate. His voice crackled over the comms, calm and unyielding. "You've already lost, Tharzek. You came to conquer a planet, but you've awakened something much worse. We've been through hell to get here. And now you're just another part of the story." Tharzek struggled to stand, his armor cracked and smoking. He glared at the soldier, knowing that there was nothing he could do to stop what was coming. With one last look at the battlefield, the smoldering ruins, the scattered remains of his army, and the unwavering human soldier, Tharzek understood. The storm was not over. It had only just begun. The alien forces were in full retreat now, but Tharzek could hardly feel the victory that had once seemed so certain. His soldiers were scattered, their morale shattered, and their command structure in complete disarray. The humans had turned the battlefield into a nightmare, and every time Tharzek thought he could regain some semblance of control, the humans adapted, relentlessly pressing forward. Tharzek, bloodied and bruised, stood in the wreckage of what had once been his command center. The alien war machines that had been so powerful in their glory days were now reduced to twisted heaps of scrap metal. The ground around him was littered with the bodies of his fallen soldiers, their alien blood staining the earth. "General, we can't keep this up," Verlik said, his voice trembling with panic. "We've lost most of our forces. The humans are relentless. We're running out of time." Tharzek's eyes scanned the horizon, watching the flickering lights of the human machines moving through the smoke. They were everywhere, swarming, tracking, and hunting. And their leader, the human soldier, was still out there, like a shadow that never seemed to fade. "I won't retreat," Tharzek growled. "Not until I have answers. Not until I understand why we can't defeat them." Verlik turned to him, his face pale. "You're risking everything. If we keep pushing forward, we will be annihilated. They're not just stronger, they're smarter. We need to leave. We need to regroup and rethink our strategy." Tharzek clenched his fists. "No, if we retreat now, we'll be seen as weak. We'll never recover from this." He looked at the shattered battlefield. He couldn't abandon it, not after everything they had invested. "We'll make our last stand here," Tharzek decided. "We'll draw them in, let them think they've won, and then we'll hit them with everything we've got." Verlik looked horrified. "But we don't have the forces for that anymore. Our weapons are damaged, our soldiers are broken. Enough." Tharzek snapped. "If you want to leave, then do so. But I will not be remembered as a coward." Verlik fell silent, but the fear in his eyes was clear. Tharzek's anger simmered beneath the surface as he stared out at the human forces closing in. The time for strategy had passed. This was no longer a battle of tactics, it was a battle of willpower. And Tharzek would not back down. The humans continued to advance, their movements slow and deliberate as they closed in on the remains of Tharzek's base. The giant human machines, still unstoppable, moved like predators on the hunt, and the smaller human soldiers dashed between the ruins, coordinating their strikes with terrifying precision. It was like they knew exactly where to go and how to strike. Tharzek gripped his weapon tightly. He was determined to make them pay for every inch of ground they had taken. His forces, what was left of them, prepared for one last desperate push. "We fight for survival," Tharzek roared. "Today, we remind them that no one defeats the Empire." With his command given, the remaining alien soldiers formed a defensive line, their weapons aimed at the approaching humans. Tharzek stood at the front, his eyes steely with resolve. The human soldier, the one who had taunted him, stood at the front of the human army, his weapon lowered but his expression unchanged. It was almost as if he were waiting, watching, analyzing Tharzek's every move. Then the first explosion rang out. It wasn't from Tharzek's forces, It came from above. Tharzek's eyes shot upward, his heart sinking. Human ships had circled above, releasing a barrage of bombs that rained down on the alien soldiers, engulfing them in flames and smoke. The shockwave sent Tharzek tumbling to the ground, his vision blurring. "Get up," he shouted, his voice strained. "Get up, you fools." But it was too late. The human ships unleashed another volley, and Tharzek's forces were shattered. In moments, what remained of the alien army was scattered, torn apart by the relentless human assault. Tharzek managed to rise, his armor dented and scorched, and he stumbled toward the human soldier, who stood unmoving, his eyes cold and unblinking. "Why?" Tharzek gasped. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from us?" The human soldier finally spoke. His voice was calm, but filled with an eerie weight. "What we want is simple. We want you to understand the cost of underestimating us. You thought you could conquer us, and now, you're the ones who've learned the truth." Tharzek's anger flared. You think you've won." The human soldier didn't flinch. "We're not here to win. We're here to survive, and we'll fight to the last breath." Tharzek's eyes narrowed. "You're nothing but insects to be crushed." The soldier smiled, a small, knowing smile that sent a chill down Tharzek's spine. "We've been called worse, but we're still standing. And we always will be." The human raised his weapon, and before Tharzek could react, a brilliant beam of energy shot out, striking the alien general square in the chest. His body convulsed, and he fell to the ground with a crash, his vision fading as the world around him dissolved into darkness. Tharzek awoke to a dull ache, his head throbbing as if the very universe had decided to punish him for his arrogance. His vision was blurry at first, the world around him a haze of shadows and smoke. His chest felt heavy, as though the weight of his own failure was pressing down on him. He groaned, his body sore and battered. His once pristine armor was now scorched and cracked, a mere shell of what it had been. The battlefield was eerily silent, the sounds of gunfire and explosions replaced by an unsettling calm. The ground beneath him was cold, and he realized with a sinking feeling that he was no longer in the midst of the fight. He was somewhere else. Tharzek slowly pushed himself up, wincing as pain shot through his limbs. He looked around, his mind still clouded with confusion. "Where am I?" he muttered to himself, his voice weak. He was no longer surrounded by the chaos of the battlefield. Instead, he found himself in a dark, metallic chamber. The walls were cold, and the faint hum of machinery echoed around him. He could see his hands, shaky and weak, pressed against the floor as he tried to regain his strength. A low voice broke the silence, one that Tharzek knew all too well. "You're awake." Tharzek turned his head sharply, his instincts kicking in. He recognized the voice immediately, the human soldier who had been the bane of his existence, the one who had led the humans in their unrelenting assault, the one who had defeated him. The human stood at the edge of the chamber, leaning casually against the wall. His weapon was slung across his back, and his face was unreadable. There was no fear in his eyes, no satisfaction, just an unwavering calm. "Where am I?" Tharzek demanded again, his voice now stronger, though still laced with anger. The human raised an eyebrow. "You're in a holding cell. You were captured after your forces fell. You've been unconscious for a while." Tharzek's heart skipped a beat. "Captured?" The human nodded. "You were taken alive. There's no glory in killing you, General. Not when we've already won." Tharzek's anger flared, but he held it back, forcing himself to focus. "You think this is over?" He spat. "You can't win. I'll never let you. The Empire will." The human soldier interrupted him, his tone quiet but firm. "The Empire is already crumbling. The humans you fought are the last of an entire species that was almost wiped out. Do you know why we fight so hard?" Tharzek's mind raced, his body trembling with a mix of exhaustion and fury. "Because you're desperate. You're weak. The soldier chuckled softly. We fight because we have to. And we fight to survive. We don't give up. That's why you lost. Not because you were outnumbered or outgunned, but because you underestimated us. You thought we were weak. Tharzek glared at him, fury rising in his chest. You will regret this. The Empire will destroy you all. The human sighed, his expression growing slightly more somber. The Empire isn't coming for you, General. It's already too late. We're not your enemies anymore. We're the future. Tharzek's breath quickened. Lies. All lies. You can't defeat us. You can't possibly hope to. The human soldier stepped forward, his face now close enough for Tharzek to see the unwavering resolve in his eyes. We didn't defeat you because we were stronger, the soldier said quietly. We defeated you because we didn't stop. We didn't let anything stand in our way. Tharzek's mind raced, but his body was too weak to fight back. He had no idea where he was, how long he had been out, or what the humans were planning. But one thing was clear. The war was far from over. He was being held captive, and he had no idea what they were going to do with him next. Hours passed in the cold cell, and Tharzek's mind churned with dark thoughts. He had been humiliated, captured like some lesser being. The pride of the Empire had been shattered in an instant. He had underestimated the humans, and now he was paying the price. But the war wasn't over yet. No, he wouldn't accept defeat. He refused to believe that this was his end. Suddenly, the door to the cell slid open, and two human guards entered, their eyes fixed on Tharzek. They didn't speak. They simply moved with precision, like a well-trained machine. One of them held a small device that emitted a low hum as it scanned Tharzek's body. Time's up, the first guard said flatly, his voice emotionless. Tharzek's heart raced. What is this? What are you doing? The guards didn't respond. Instead, they began to drag him to his feet, pulling him toward the door. Tharzek fought them off as best as he could, but his body was weak, and the guards were relentless. You can't do this. You think I'll just bend to you. Idle. The guards ignored him, continuing their march through the dark corridors of the ship. Tharzek could hear the distant hum of machinery, the clank of boots on metal floors. He had no idea where they were taking him, but he had a sinking feeling in his gut. Finally, they reached a large room, its walls lined with technology that Tharzek didn't recognize. At the center of the room was a large table, surrounded by screens and blinking lights. Put him on the table, one of the guards ordered. Tharzek struggled, but he was quickly pinned down. As the guard strapped him to the table, he realized with horror what they were planning. This is it, he thought, his mind racing. This is where I die. But the human soldier who had captured him entered the room just then, his face unreadable. Leave him, the soldier said to the guards. I want to speak with him alone. The guards hesitated for a moment, but then left the room, leaving Tharzek and the soldier alone. The soldier moved closer, his gaze never leaving the alien general. You're not going to die, General. Not yet. Tharzek's eyes burned with hatred. You'll regret this. You'll all regret what you've done. The soldier simply watched him, his expression calm. No, General. You've already lost. You just don't know it yet. Tharzek lay on the cold metal table, his body bound by thick straps that cut into his skin. His mind raced with confusion and fury. How had it come to this? How had the mighty empire, his empire, been brought so low by these humans? The soldier who had captured him stood at the edge of the table, watching him with an expression that was both calm and unreadable. His face was now framed by the harsh light of the room, but there was no arrogance in his demeanor, no satisfaction in the victory, just the quiet determination of someone who had seen too much war. You don't need to do this, Tharzek growled, his voice strained from the anger that burned in his chest. You can't possibly think you'll get away with this. The Empire is dead, General. The soldier interrupted quietly. The empire you served is already crumbling. It's not coming back. Farzek's blood boiled at the words. You can't destroy us. We've crushed every species that stood in our way. What makes you think you're any different? The human soldier sighed, taking a step closer. You're wrong. It wasn't about destruction. It was about survival. You never understood that. Farzek struggled against his restraints, desperate to break free. But it was useless. The soldiers who had captured him had done their work too well. The human soldier continued, his voice soft but unwavering. The reason we fight, the reason we never stop, is because we don't have the luxury of underestimating our enemies. We've learned from our mistakes, and every time we fall, we get back up. Farzek narrowed his eyes, trying to process the meaning behind the soldier's words. The human's calmness only made his anger grow. You don't even understand. You think you've won because you've captured me, but I will break free. You'll regret this. The soldier's gaze didn't waver. You haven't learned anything, have you, General? This isn't about you escaping. This isn't about your pride or your empire. This is about us showing you what happens when you stop seeing your enemies as equals, when you stop learning from your failures. Farzek's heart thudded in his chest. What are you talking about? The soldier moved closer, kneeling beside the table. What we've learned, what you refuse to learn, is that survival is about more than just power. It's about adapting. It's about resilience. And you, General, didn't adapt. You came here expecting an easy victory because you thought we were weak. Farzek felt his chest tighten. He had made the mistake. He had underestimated them. And now he was paying the price. You're right, Farzek admitted, his voice quieter now. I thought you were weak. I thought you were nothing. The soldier gave him a small, knowing nod. And that's why we're still here. That's why you're here now. Because we never gave up. And we never will. For a moment, the room was silent, the weight of the truth hanging in the air like a thick fog. Farzek had always believed that strength was the key to survival, that only the strongest, the most powerful, could rise to the top. But now, in the face of this human soldier, he realized how wrong he had been. Why didn't you kill me? Farzek asked quietly, the anger fading from his voice. Why did you bring me here instead of ending me? The soldier's gaze softened just slightly. We didn't bring you here to kill you, General. We brought you here to show you something, to show you why we fight. Farzek felt a chill run down his spine. The human soldier was holding something, a small device in his hand, which he placed gently on the table beside him. We brought you here, the soldier continued, because we wanted you to understand. We wanted you to see what happens when you underestimate humanity, when you forget that survival isn't about strength. It's about the will to keep going, no matter what. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. The choice is yours now, General. You can remain in your pride and arrogance, or you can join us. Help us rebuild. Help us show the rest of the galaxy what true survival looks like. Farzek's mind swirled with the weight of the soldier's words. He had thought the humans were nothing more than pests, unworthy of consideration. But now, in the face of his defeat, in the wake of his shattered beliefs, he saw the truth. They say the strongest survive, Farzek whispered, more to himself than to the soldier. But you're showing me that maybe it's not about strength. Maybe it's about something else. The soldier didn't speak at first. He just stood there, watching Farzek with a quiet understanding. Finally, the soldier spoke again, his voice low and steady. We fight not because we're strong, General. We fight because we refuse to stop. We fight because we believe in our future. And we believe in the idea that anyone, no matter how broken, can rise again. Farzek's heart sank. He had been broken. His empire had fallen. But there was still something within him. The spark of defiance, the spark of life that refused to fade. It was a strange feeling, one he couldn't quite explain. The pride of his past seemed small now, insignificant in the face of something far greater. The human soldier was right. It wasn't strength that had won this battle. It was something else. With a final, long sigh, Tharzek turned his gaze to the soldier. "I see now," he whispered. "I see why you've won." The soldier nodded, his expression grim but satisfied. "Survival, General. It's about survival."